One thing China has realized militarily, it failed to change status quo at the line of actual control, and India insists on restoration of status quo ante all across the 832-kilometer long line of actual control. It will take dialogue, but China continues to mount pressure. And is China now waging war on India by other means? A series of cyber attacks. Maharashtra Energy Minister Nitin Raut is convinced that the outage in Maharashtra on the 12th of October was a cyber attack. There was a report in a Western publication that also seemed to indicate so, or actually say so in as many words. Now Maharashtra's Home Minister Anil Deshmukh has also said exactly the same thing, that this was a concerted attack. There are sources in the government who are saying that systematically an effort was made not just to target Maharashtra but also Shillong in the east, Telangana and Delhi. So systematic Chinese attacks on our power grid. Are we prepared? Are we prepared to counter it? Or are we burying our heads in sand, pretending the problem does not exist, or we wish it goes away?
On October 12, 2020, there was a massive power outage in Maharashtra. Mumbai's lifeline, the suburban rail system, came to a standstill. Hospitals were without power. The Mumbai Stock Exchange had no power. After a detailed probe, Maharashtra Energy Minister Nitin Raut insists the outage was a Chinese cyber attack.
न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स और वॉशिंगटन पोस्ट ने जो रिपोर्ट आज उनके इसमें डाली है उसमें बहुत सारा सत्य है, और मैंने जो कहा था वो सच भी है कि हमारे पे साइबर अटैक हुआ था.
The New York Times, quoting a US-based cybersecurity and intelligence firm, Recorded Future had claimed that the October 12 grid failure was due to the Chinese malware. As Indian and Chinese troops faced off on the icy cold peaks of eastern Ladakh, the US firm claimed that there was sustained targeting of Indian public sector undertakings, Ministry of Defense and Power Grid by Chinese state-backed group of hackers called Red Echo.
अगर ऐसी इस प्रकार के फ्रोजन्स डालकर अगर कोई कंप्यूटर में वॉल तोड़कर अगर अंदर घुसता है तो निश्चित रूप से अगर ये चीज अगर जो लोकल ट्रेन चलती है उनके इसमें डाला गया अगर गया तो सारे ट्रेनें आपस में भिड़ सकती है और नया ये हो सकता है. इस प्रकार का ये होता है.
Recorded Future claims it immediately informed both the US and Indian governments about the cyber attacks and helped government not only identify loopholes in the system but also to plug the gaps. The government, however, insists attempts were made by the Chinese hackers to deploy malware, but they did not succeed.
ये जितने पदाधिकारी हैं सब अलर्ट. हम लोगों ने आदेश भी निकाला जुलाई में कि कोई भी इक्विपमेंट जाएगा तो उसका पहले हम लोग अच्छी तरह से जांच करेंगे कि कोई मैलवेयर नहीं हो. जुलाई में निकला था 2020 में, आपको याद होगा तो यहाँ सब मैलवेयर की जांच के लिए होगा. यह सब हम लोग सतर्क हैं.
The BJP in Maharashtra not only questioned the revelation but also the timing of the revelation by the Maharashtra Energy Minister.
We are putting a question straight to the minister. Number one, what are the evidence by which you have come to this conclusion? What are the substantial documents or information the state government has? We want to know the same.
Analysts say at the height of India-China standoff, with Indian army putting China on the back foot with quid pro quo operations on the southern bank of Pangong Tso, the Chinese launched multiple malware deployment operations not only in Maharashtra but also in Shillong, Telangana and New Delhi with no or limited success.
एक नेशनल लेवल सॉक की जरूरत है जिसमें सारे जो स्टेट लेवल एसओसीज हैं उनको इंटीग्रेट किया जाए और एक नेशनल लेवल सिक्योरिटी ऑपरेशन सेंटर बनाया जाए जिसमें 24 घंटे भारत के क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स की मॉनिटरिंग हो. मेरे ख्याल से इसकी जरूरत आ पड़ी है.
Sources, however, warn the Chinese hacking attempts at seaports, power grid and elsewhere could only intensify in the times to come.
Maharashtra government says that it'll need some time to go over the 100-page report and decide its next course of action depending on what the recommendations have been in that report. With cameraman Vijay Desai in Mumbai, Vidya for India Today.
So this isn't about an attack on A government or B government or C government. This is an attack on India. And is India united in responding to this attack? Are we even aware of the gravity of the situation, or are we burying our heads in sand? Because there are multiple voices that seem to be emerging. Some that seem to say that no attack took place. Some that seem to indicate that yes, an attack took place, but it failed. And some others who say an attack took place, it succeeded, limited damage this time. There could be major damage next time. Joining me on India First is Priyanka Chaturvedi, Deputy Leader of the Shiv Sena, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. I have Professor Brahma Chilani, one of the finest known voices on China. I have Pawan Duggal joining me, a cybersecurity expert. I have Tuhin Sinha, leader of the BJP and author, and Sunil Ahire is Congress Party spokesperson. But Priyanka Chaturvedi, is there conclusive proof to show that yes, this was a cyber attack and an attack by the Chinese state-backed hackers?
I think even the Home Minister has gone on record to make that statement. And if you remember when this power outage happened in October, the Power Minister had gone on record to say that this did not look like a normal breakdown. It looked like a systematic breakdown which was targeting the city of Mumbai and trying to stop India's economic activity, because Mumbai happens to be the hub of it. And I think if you look at the sequence of events as per the latest report and as per what CERT India has said, that whether it was in the month of October, followed by November, followed by February, they have seen such kind of malware attacks coming from Chinese-sponsored state attack. So instead of denying this, instead of the Indian government, I was listening to Mr. R.K. Singh, who's gone on to say it was a human error. It could be. But why should we just dismiss the entire China angle? Why is the government of India totally scared of even naming China and understanding that China is capable of not just infiltrating our borders, it's capable of infiltrating human body's immune system, infiltrating even cyber spaces to be able to cause enough damage to those countries that they are not having a friendly relationship with. And I think we should be open to the idea. And we should be ensuring that we are keep safeguarding our cyber systems and our software to ensure that there's no economic I would say breakdown.
Oh, absolutely, Priyanka Chaturvedi. Professor Brahma Chilani, are we downplaying the problem? Are we, in your appreciation, burying our heads in sand, sir?
First, there was no need for the Indian minister to give a clean chit to China. Why should India come to China's rescue? The fact is that this report appeared in the New York Times, and China, in its foreign ministry statement yesterday, did not specifically deny the cyber attack that created this Mumbai blackout. In fact, China defensively said that it's not possible to trace the origin of a cyber attack. So the fact that China did not specifically deny the cyber attack that was mentioned in the US company's report should have been sufficient for India not to go beyond the Chinese statement and say, no, there was no Chinese involvement, it was a human error. Second point that we need to keep in mind is that China has the capability to carry out such attacks, including injecting flow of malware in power grids control systems. China has invested large sums of money to gain advantage in cyberspace. It has created a new force known as the Strategic Support Force. This Strategic Support Force, its responsibilities include cyber and psychological warfare operations. Now, this infrastructure that China has created, the special force that China has created for cyber and psychological warfare operations, underscores its capabilities and also its intent.
Absolutely. So explain this to Hinsina. Why would government then go out of its way and give China a clean sheet, as Professor Brahmachalani puts it? Or as Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Shiv Sena says, are we even scared to name China as an aggressor, whether it's at the line of actual control or deploying this malware in power grid, sir?
Well, China, like Pakistan, is incorrigible, and when an expansionist, a devious expansionist force is thwarted on the borders, it is quite possible that they would resort to proxy wars in other forms. But in this, so Mr. Singh's, the Central Energy Minister's statement is based on this particular case. It is based on evidence, and but obviously the possibility of China being involved in such attacks in future cannot be ruled out. In fact, the very fact that in the last 1 year, 250 apps have been banned by India, Chinese apps have been banned, is just one of the many things we have done to prevent similar attacks of this nature. And we are cognizant of the fact that the health sector and banking sector are especially vulnerable to such attacks. But then, we would not be vindictive if there is evidence.
Not just health and banking, sir, your power sector, your communication sector, your railway sector, very crucial infrastructure sectors. Why should we have had so much dependence on China in the first place anyways? But you are saying that there is evidence to indicate that this time China was not involved. Where is that evidence, sir? Pawan Dugal, in your appreciation, is there evidence that China was not involved, or is there evidence that China or Chinese hackers or Chinese state-backed hackers were involved, sir?
As of now, it's hard to give any concrete finding because all the facts are still not in the public domain. But once an allegation has come in and once a company has told the Indian government, this is our report and this is our logs, then I think merely brushing aside the fact that it's a Western report and therefore we don't take cognizance of it, I think is not the correct approach. The better approach is, once a wake-up call has been issued, what prevents India from examining its own logs, from the purposes of seeing and auditing its own power systems to find out how many hackers are still sitting inside government of India or the Indian government power grids or the energy grids? Because if I was to look at the Ukrainian example, in Ukraine, the exact similar thing happened. The power grid was targeted by Russian hackers and large areas were in darkness, and once that they were able to get the power back, they did an audit of their power systems and the grid a few months later. And they found out, to their surprise, that a lot of Russian hackers were still sitting inside the grid. So right now, we don't even know how many of these hackers are currently sitting still inside the Indian power grid. And merely we are dismissing these facts that nothing is fine, it's a human error. I think we are basically closing our eyes like a pigeon to the cat which is about to eat the pigeon. Now, very quickly, we should come out of that deep slumber, because otherwise, Indian sovereignty, security, and integrity could be prejudicially impacted. Mind you, no longer is now just cybersecurity a lip service issue. Right now, it's an existential issue. If you're not going to appropriately address it, considering the fact that as a nation we have been very lax on it, we are going to cost. This is going to cost very dearly. More so when India doesn't have a dedicated cybersecurity law. Our national cybersecurity policy 2013 is in shambles and has remained a paper tiger. We as a nation are thoroughly unprepared to go ahead and meet.
So let's take this step by step. Okay. There are very pertinent points you've raised here, but Mr. Ahire, is there merit in the government saying that yes, there was an attempt, but that attempt failed? They tried to inject malware, they tried to put in malware, but that did not succeed because there were effective firewalls and India is effectively ring-fenced. Are we crying wolf then, sir?
See, it is a very serious matter of national security, I would say. The Home Minister is not a small man. He is the Home Minister of the state. He has taken a press conference and has categorically said that the Recorded Future and Network Analysis Company has given some findings, and we should take it very seriously. So that it is apparently learned that China might have planted a virus into MSEB, that is Maharashtra State Electricity Board's, electrical infrastructure. That caused a total blackout during on 12th October 2020. So it is a matter of security.
Oh, absolutely. And that would completely cripple the economy. You're absolutely right. It's a matter of economy. It's a matter of national security. But at this point of time, Priyanka Chaturvedi, have we taken effective countermeasures? Are the center and the state on the same page, ma'am, to deal with the situation? Because if they've done it once, they may try and do it again. If they've partially succeeded this time, they'll try and succeed or perhaps cause bigger damage next time.
No, I don't think this is a time to say something for public consumption and to not take measures to ensure that a country which has been so hostile to us, a country which is capable of leading various other attacks on our nation, is capable of doing this as well. And there's no harm in calling out such nations and safeguarding our own country and our own territorial activities from such attacks coming from overseas. So all I'd say is that, yes, we need to safeguard our systems. I think where CERT is concerned, they've done a brilliant job. And we need to ensure that even in the future, that we do not create spaces where they can find a loophole, infiltrate our systems, and cause enough damage, whether it's economic or in any other way. India needs to safeguard its territory, not just the geographical territory, but also what we see in the cyberspace and all the activities that are conducted through the internet.
Yes. So, Professor Brahmachalani, what are measures that India can take at this point of time? How do we ring fence our systems? One, was it a big mistake to let China invest so much in our infrastructure? I mean, why should we go for an L1 system? But we'll talk about that L1 or the lowest bidder getting the contract because of China's predatory pricing. They may succeed. But that aspect in just a moment. What are effective measures? Put in additional firewalls, or is offense the best defense? QPQ, like in South Pangong, so can we do this here, sir?
Well, it will be very expensive to replace the Chinese equipment that we have. Indian security agencies have been warning for years that Indian reliance on Chinese power and telecom equipment will turn into a major security risk. And today, India confronts a major security risk. But replacing that equipment now would involve investing tens of billions of dollars. That is certainly not a credible proposition. But what India needs to do is to build robust deterrent capabilities. India should be able to impose costs on China for its cyber attacks. As long as China can get away with cyber attacks, it'll have all the incentive to keep exposing India's vulnerabilities, to keep signaling to India that it can actually shut not just the lights in Mumbai, it can shut the lights across India and bring India to a stop virtually. So to prevent China from continuing to engage in cyber aggression, India should be willing to invest in cyber security and, more importantly, in developing offensive cyber capabilities so as to deter Chinese cyber aggression. And the most important thing that we need is a change in mindset.
Yes.
An overly defensive mindset can undermine the most powerful instruments, the most powerful technologies that a nation might have. Now, if we don't come out of that overly defensive mindset, then any investment that we make in cybersecurity will be of little utility.
You just cannot keep batting on the defensive. You have to go out on the front foot. You have to hit the ball out of the park. We've shown that in south of Pangong So when India did a quid pro quo operation, and that did compel the Chinese to step back. But Pavan Duggal, do we have the ability to do a QPQ in the cyberspace? In case they inject a malware, can we do the same, sir?
Well, as of now, our capacities need tremendous enhancement. India lacks a dedicated cyber army which can actually go ahead and monitor and protect Indian sovereign interests in cyberspace. India lacks the 3 cybersecurity laws that China has already put up. Look, China way back in 2015 told the world that my cybersecurity is part of my national security. India has still not made any such declaration. Even going forward, the national cybersecurity strategy is still awaited. And mind you, strategy has only got a directive value. It has got no mandatory value. At a time when critical information infrastructure is both in governmental hands as also in the private sector hands, it's very important to have a collaborative model. But somehow the mindset within the government is that cybersecurity is a governmental baby and outsiders are not allowed. We have to quickly start engaging everybody. The need for inculcating cybersecurity as a way of life has to be the mantra as the government goes forward. We have the capacities, we just need to mobilize them. We have the will, we just need to focus it in the right direction.
We have the capacity to Okay. Very important point you're making there, sir. We have the capabilities, we have the capacity, we need to be able to use it. We need to have the mindset to use that capability. And Tuhin Sinha, if we keep saying that there hasn't been an attack, if we keep saying that there hasn't been an incursion, we are actually giving China a get out of jail pass for free. Why are we doing that, sir?
You know, on 28 June last year, Mr. R.K. Singh had made a clear statement that all power equipments purchased from China would be checked for malware. And this was a process which was completed over the next few weeks. And potentially, I would say that, it's very difficult to imagine that they would not have tried to hack our Arogya Setu app or CoWIN. And if these attacks have been thwarted, it is because certain safeguards have been in place. Now, we know for a fact that after 1971, when Pakistan realized that they could not compete with India, they resorted to proxy war of a different kind. And China, from here, would resort to a technological proxy war. So you can rest assured that, a lot of things are in place which we don't discuss publicly, but those attempts by China would be satisfactorily thwarted. And I think India is abreast of the situation.
Sunil Ahire, are you resting assured? Are you resting assured? No, Tuhin Sinha. When it comes to national security, it's too important an issue to be just left to words like rest assured. We've had a blackout in Mumbai. The stock exchange came to a standstill. The Mumbai suburban trains came to a standstill. Hospitals were in the dark. And Sunil Ahire, if they can cripple our economy in our maximum city once, they can do it again. And they can cripple our economy. That is where India needs to effectively counter China. In your appreciation, are you rest assured that the government is doing enough, sir?
No. The national government of Narendra Modi is totally failed in handling such issues. Issues regarding China, he is exposing that. Every day, China is coming in. Secondly, this is a matter of very concern that the imports, what we import from China, like electronics and all technology, that should be immediately stopped. Now this is just an small picture you have seen. This could be extended in a bigger attack also. So the Narendra Modi government is not serious in the security as far as the national security is concerned. So they should take this very seriously.
But did all of this equipment, Mr. Ahire, and let me get Brahma Chelani to set us all wise on facts. Sir, on national security, let there not be party politics. Did all this power infrastructure investment happen in Narendra Modi's time, or was it happening even before? Whether it is power or telecom or railways, Brahma Chelani, did this investment start post 2014?
No, we have been relying on Chinese equipment for a long time. It began under Vajpayee and was accelerated under Manmohan Singh. And the 10-year period under Manmohan Singh saw China dominating both the power equipment and the telecom equipment supply areas. But, we still haven't changed course fundamentally. Last year's Chinese aggression, of course, has led to a suspension of major imports from China. And I hope that this will force India to completely revise its policy and to ensure that this heavy Chinese penetration that we have in two critical sectors is diminished gradually by diversification. Absolutely. And also through adequate security and cyber measures in place. It's very important now, it's very important for India now to focus on security of its critical infrastructure. And I'm talking about critical infrastructure, not just power sector, but also critical infrastructure that extends all the way to the banking sector.
Banking, telecom, you're absolutely right, sir. Power, railways. So a country's economy, whatever impacts the economy, why should you have China in these sectors? And Priyanka Chaturvedi, the center and the states, the government and the opposition, everyone needs to be on the same page. Are we on the same page on how we need to deal with the threat that's posed by China, ma'am?
Absolutely. Maharashtra government is very clear that we will continue to work in coordination with the central government if they so need our suggestions and our inputs. Our cyber cell is pretty active and pretty proactive. We have identified fake bots, we've identified fake news, we've identified misinformation campaigns, disinformation campaigns that happen, and it would do the country a lot of good if we end up finding out the sources of such behavior which comes from nations which are hostile to us. And we must understand, we are living in times where you will not see the traditional warfare weapons being used, but biological warfare. We saw that with COVID. Everybody refuses to even name the country which is doing this. We are refusing to even acknowledge the cyber warfare that is upon us. So if we do not safeguard ourselves, if we do not prepare ourselves, we are going to pay a heavy price, which India cannot afford to do. So it is might as well that the government of India acknowledges this, works on it, and we are all, because the nation comes first, we are all on it and work along with the government, alongside the government of India, only if they were to acknowledge that there is a certain challenge coming from that part of the world.
Oh, absolutely, ma'am. Oh, absolutely. You put it perfectly that you need to acknowledge there is a problem, only then will you be able to find a solution. And Pawan Duggal, perhaps then a conscious call needs to be taken that Chinese investment in telecommunication, in power, in railways. Imagine, 400 kilometers of signaling. You had the Chinese coming in. It's only now that India is trying to jettison them from signal communication on a dedicated freight corridor. All of that needs to stop, even if it means we spend more money buying the same from elsewhere. At least national security is not about putting all your eggs in the L1 basket.
The fact remains is that we have already begun that journey in that direction. We began by blocking and banning the Chinese apps, but we stopped at that. I think we need to go far beyond. We need to specifically weed out any kind of Chinese elements in the sovereign systems so that the sovereignty, security and integrity of India is not compromised. Please understand that there is conflict of interest between India and China is always likely to take part into such action which could prejudicially impact Indian public order or Indian cyber sovereign interests. Therefore, if as a nation we begin with India first, or the Indian interest first as a philosophy, that can go a long way. And even if it's going to take money, no problem. It's far more invaluable than all the monies that we are going to put in replacing or substituting the systems. At the end of the day, China should not be allowed to go ahead and drill holes in the Indian digital data economy, in Indian critical information infrastructure, so that it can become a leaking hole. The fact remains is India has to give a strong message. We value our sovereignty and we do everything in our power and possession to ensure that you or any other state or non-state actor does not interfere in the Indian sovereign interests in cyberspace and also in the actual world.
Brahma Chilani, post Galwan, post this current standoff, are we taking real measures or are we still taking half measures? And Galwan was an eye-opener. Is this Maharashtra outage perhaps the second eye-opener, and no more half measures? Take a conscious decision that even if we need to pay more, even if it slows down the pace, we'll go for anyone but China when it comes to critical infrastructure in telecommunication and banking and railways and signal system, in all of these very critical sectors, sir.
Well, India needs to recognize that China is not just an adversary, but a country determined to dismember India. It is seeking to fracture India's unity, challenge India's territorial integrity, and undermine its security in various ways. Today, India is faced with cyber aggression, territorial aggression, and riparian aggression. So there are multiple fronts that China has opened against India. And yet, if you look at India's China policy, there is still no fundamental shift. We imposed a curb on Chinese investments, but in recent days we have read in the newspapers that India has already started easing that freeze. Why? Why should we reward China's aggression? Why should we, for example, give China a clean bill of health on its cyber attacks? As you mentioned, Gaurav, first it was no Chinese intrusions. Now we're saying no Chinese cyber attack. Why? Why come to the rescue of Beijing?
Tuhin Sinha explain why.
Of President Xi
Absolutely.
Is an expansionist regime that does not recognize international law or international norms, and we should treat China as a outlaw state, as a renegade state, as a rogue state. That should be the Indian policy.
You know, in the last few years, we have shown...
Please explain. Please explain. Last 30 seconds.
In the last few years, we've shown a very consistently firm resolve in dealing with all of China's machinations, whether it was OBOR, whether it was Doklam, or whether it was Galvin. I would say banning 250 plus apps was a huge step in actually, circumventing a whole lot of possible data breach, which they must have been on the anvil of, which they must have been on the verge of executing, given the way they have been clustered on the border and given the way their intent has been, thwarted. But going ahead, to expect complete ban of business, I think the government is going ahead with a very judicious approach. We have kept an arm's length, but to completely shun it would have its own geopolitical repercussions, which the government is factoring in. And
fair enough. Let's see how this plays out in the days, weeks, months and years ahead, because remember, once it may be coincidence or happenstance, when it happens repeatedly, it is enemy action, and enemy action must be called out and effective countermeasures taken. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. We'll be tracking this story very closely.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.